Hey everyone and welcome to Storytime. My name is Jake and today we are going to be looking at the subreddit r/prorevenge, where people tell us their best stories on how they got revenge on someone they didn't like. If you're new around here, please do hit subscribe down below so that you never miss out on another video. But for now, let's sit back, relax and enjoy some pro-revenge. Friend tries to get me fired, but I turn the tables. Context: I'm a year 9 student, British schooling system, and go to a very good school. This is a massive privilege to have, and I'm massively thankful for it. Our school has a magazine which we print and distribute to teachers, students and parents, and it is very popular. I am fortunate enough to be the assistant editor of the magazine. I basically format and check the magazine while making sure everyone in the committee is doing well. And it's hard work. As part of this role, I have to teach and mentor the new students and get them used to the new system. Being in the committee is like having a job. So balancing it with school is tough, and lots of newbies drop out very quick when they begin to realise they can't handle the workload. I enjoy teaching the new guys, as it's mostly people who love writing as much as I do, and it really gives us a connection that does stick around. However, last year I had a very bad mentoree whom I dislike to this very day. Cast: me, take a guess, WI, very cool and kind teacher and head editor of the magazine, AM, douchebag mentoree, and BF, one of my best friends. Now, I knew the douchebag before he joined the committee. We were friends. We'd been into town with each other a bit, and we were good mates, so I was expecting to be mentoring him. The way mentoring works is that there are 7 tasks to complete and have checked by your mentor, leading up to a big review 6 weeks after one first joins. The tasks are fairly easy. Learn how to Photoshop pictures for the photographers, and learning the format of the articles to make my life easier. Now, I teach the mentorees in a way which means that I set them a task, e.g. task 1, and it has a deadline which I will take in the work, check it, and give feedback on. It works well, and I have always done the mentoring this way. When I set the first task for the douchebag, I was really confident in his ability. Because we were, and still are, at a really good school. I genuinely believed that he would do it and I'd have no problems. However, as you've probably guessed, I was very wrong. When it was time for his first task to be checked, this happened. "Where's the work, AM?" "I wasn't able to do it, Merson." "Why? It was a fairly simple task. If you had any problems, I told you to ask me about them." "Well, the thing is..." AM takes a massive breath and I expect the worst. "My dad just got in a really bad car accident and I've been at the hospital the past few days." I was shocked. The guy's dad was in intensive care and I was ready to give him a hard time for not doing some work. I immediately apologised and almost had a panic attack. I gave him an extra week to do his work. I was a terrible person. I went home and sobbed about how mean I was ready to be. I came in the next day and avoided him as much as possible. At this point, I didn't even suspect a thing. When it came to his second task, and the first task as well, being checked, I was nervous but prepared. "How did you find the work?" "I couldn't finish either of them." At this point, I was just angry. He told me privately that he wasn't in the hospital as much anymore, so I was confused. "Come on, this is starting to get silly. Your review is soon and you haven't even started the tasks." "Merson, it's because my cat got put down. It was really old and I've had it since birth. So I was really attached to it." This made me really upset. I have 2 cats and I love them to pieces. I couldn't even imagine their death, so I told AM I was sorry, but he needed to get either the work done or take an official break and leave the committee briefly. This gets put on a report which is kept by the teacher, and it's about the bad things a person in the committee has done. This back and forth of, "Work? Nope, and here's why," went on until literally the day before his review. I had sat down with him and spoke to him about how he had done none of the work and had 6+ hours of work to do for the next day. He was really apologetic, but I had become totally immune to his shenanigans by this point. He'd really ticked me off. By this point, I didn't know if he was lying or not, but I had my suspicions. Then, his review came around. I was terrified. You see, as his mentor, if he does badly, I get in trouble for not doing my job well enough. I am a massive goody two-shoes. I've never had a detention and I was petrified of getting one as my parents would not approve. The douchebag, the teacher and I sit down, and when the teacher asks to see the work, AM says he hasn't got any of it. Before I can interrupt and explain the situation, AM goes on to say that he handed in all of the work, but I had said that none of it was good enough and threw it all out before the review. WI gave me the death stare. I was crapping bricks. In my first year of being in the committee, I had lied to WI about doing some work. This had been put on my report and I got screamed at for 15 minutes straight. He said I had delayed printing by over a week and I was incompetent, etc. We moved past it and now we enjoy each other's company very much. And essentially, if I made any mistakes, I was getting fired. I looked up at AM, shocked about what he'd said, and stuttered to WI the actual situation and all the lies he'd told me. The teacher didn't believe me, as not so long ago, I had lied. I then made it my absolute mission to prove everything he had told me and WI wrong. But there was one problem. I didn't arrange anything over a traceable source. I hadn't emailed or texted him other than on Snapchat, but that deletes messages after being read. It looked like I was going to get fired, and I only had a few days to prove my innocence before I was gone. The plan. Finally. That evening, I went into town with some friends. AM wasn't present, and I sat down with my best friend. She was texting the douchebag on iMessage, so I told her what happened about the committee and AM. She was shocked and believed me over AM. This is when a plan was hatched. Firstly, I needed evidence, and my best friend gave me exactly what I needed. She took the douchebag into town on a date, as he liked her. She then began a conversation about how she heard I was being nominated for an award about my writing for the school magazine. This was actually true. I won an award for England's Young Journalist of the Year and Best Featured Article about my transgender sister. #humblebrag. Best friend then sat her phone to record the entire conversation. This included the douchebag admitting to screwing me over so he could eventually take my position as assistant editor. My best friend then sent this to me, and I stored it on my computer in sweet revenge. I sent the voice message to the teacher, and he, too, was shocked. He apologised profusely to me, and I told him that I didn't want him to fire AM yet, and then told him my plan. He was worried, but on board because of what he did to me. I met with AM the next day to apologise for being too harsh about his tasks and beg him to retract his statement about me. He obviously said no. As protocol states, I had to give other members my ongoing articles, and I gave AM my award-winning transgender article and said that I had changed so it was talking about a different girl rather than my sister. However, I actually changed it to make it horribly transphobic. Like, disgustingly transphobic. He thanked me and left. The next few weeks, I didn't show up to any meetings and made it seem like I had been kicked out. But I stayed aware of the situation in the committee and kept up to date on my articles. Because this was the kind of person he was, AM didn't even read the article I had sent him before he handed it in. So my teacher received a heavily transphobic and sexist article which AM wrote, supposedly. The teacher called AM into his office and the douchebag was screamed at for writing such a horrible article, and then played the voice tape back for him so he knew that he'd been caught. The head teacher of the school found out about the article AM had wrote, and AM was put in isolation. You get taught on your own in a separate room, where you spend lunch and break, etc. For a week. He was also fired from the committee immediately, and got a mark on his permanent record. Threaten my son? Lose your money. I left my ex-husband with our then 5-year-old son when we were going to be evicted as a result of his gambling and addiction issues. My son and I ended up living in a friend's dining room and stayed there for about 6 months until we moved into a room of our own. About 3 months after we'd left, I took my son back to visit with X. When I picked my son up, I saw a state lottery bag in X's car. X had won a pretty big lottery award a few years before, which just fueled the gambling addiction, and he ran through it in a couple months. So I recognised this as a swag bag you get when you're a big winner. When my son and I got back to my friend's place, I did some digging and found X had won about $250,000 2 months to the day after my son and I had been forced to move. We were still married and no one had filed for divorce yet. About a week before, I also found out he had a new girlfriend who he was conveniently seeing while we were still living together. This will be relevant later. I confronted him and told him I didn't even want half, just enough to get my son and I settled to start over. But he was furious I'd found out and threatened to take my son as I couldn't afford to take care of him, and now he could. I was understandably upset and was freaking out to a friend right after the confrontation. Now, my ex had 2 kids with a prior ex to whom he'd owed thousands back in child support. My friend just asked, "What's her number?" I was still sobbing and shaking and gave it to her. My friend called and said, "Hello, prior ex? This is Oh Holly Hell's friend. Just thought you'd want to know your ex-husband just won $250,000 in the lottery. Have a nice night." The prior ex immediately called me to see what this was about. I told her what had happened and we came up with a plan. I was meeting one last time with ex, who agreed to pay off the title loan on my car that I'd taken out to pay our rent while we were still together. I was to meet him at his bank. He'd give me the cash and I would take the cash to pay off the loan. As soon as he handed me the money, I texted prior ex the name of the bank. She filed a garnishment and very soon after, his accounts were frozen. He texted me, furious I told prior ex, and I just said, "You threatened to take my son because I didn't have the money to care for him, but you did. Now, you don't." Prior ex ended up getting what was left. This was a month later, and only about $90,000 was left. And the court made new girlfriend pay prior ex the money ex had given her for rent and for various gifts, which prior ex then sent to me. Not much, but a huge help when you're starting over. It's been almost 5 years now. New girlfriend is still just girlfriend, even though they got engaged before I even knew she existed, and, again, before anyone filed for divorce. And she utterly despises me and prior ex. We're both cool with it. Hey everyone, I hope you're all having a really good day and that you enjoyed that video. If you want to check out some other videos, then click on screen right now or check out the playlist down below. If you enjoyed that video, then please do leave a like on it and subscribe down below, but thank you so much for watching and I will see you very soon.